A gust of wind rattled the roadside bushes, sending dried leaves swirling into the moonlit sky. Night had fallen quickly on the isolated stretch of highway that cut through a swath of forest. Motorists, few and far between, passed by in a hurried blur, anxious to be done with the desolate road. None suspected that, hidden among the underbrush, lay a scene of heartbreak. A young girl, perhaps 8 or 9 years old, sat alone, crying. Her knees were drawn tightly to her chest as she shivered in the biting cold. She had no coat, just a thin t-shirt and patched jeans. Tremors racked her body, and her cheeks were wet with fresh tears. Every few seconds she tried to stifle a sob, wary of drawing attention from anything that might lurk in the dark. The forest whispered around her, nocturnal creatures stirring in the hush. An owl hooted in the distance, an eerie lament carried by the wind. The girl's name was Lucy, though no one there knew it, not yet. Meanwhile, a lone creature, lean with a ragged coat, hunched over in the undergrowth, crouching as if in pain. At first glance one might mistake her for a wolf, given her piercing eyes and large frame, but the faint glint of a worn-down collar hinted that she was, in fact, a female dog, likely a German shepherd mix. Her scarred flanks and protruding ribs told a story of hardship. She had lived in the wild for so long that her fur had grown coarse and unkempt, and her survival instincts were as sharp as any wolf's. Pain flickered across her muzzle. An untreated wound marred her left shoulder, matted with dried blood and dirt. For months she had roamed the outskirts of civilization, scrounging for scraps near dumpsters or rummaging through roadside trash. People who glimpsed her from a distance often fled, thinking her dangerous. Others, more cruel, threw stones or shouted until she ran away. She knew little of kindness, but as she crawled closer to the crying girl, something in the child's fragile sobs seemed to pierce her battered heart. Lucy lifted her head slightly at the sound of a low whine. 2 golden eyes, alert yet unthreatening, peered through the darkness. Lucy froze in fear. Was this a wild wolf? A coyote? She tried to keep quiet, but a choked sob escaped her lips, her entire body trembling. The dog, belly to the ground, cautiously inched forward, ears pinned back in a gesture not of aggression, but of submission. The moment Lucy and the she-wolf locked eyes, the dog stepped out of the shadows, letting the pale moonlight reveal her pitiful condition, ribs showing, muzzle streaked with scars, an old collar half embedded in her matted fur. Lucy gasped, her heart pounding. For a child abandoned on the roadside, any strange creature might be a reason to flee. Yet something made her hesitate. Whimpering quietly, the dog pressed her nose toward Lucy's hand, as though seeking permission to come closer. Lucy's eyes brimmed with fresh tears, but this time they were not tears of fear, rather an overwhelming sense of relief and confusion. In the middle of nowhere, a living soul had found her. She slowly reached out her trembling hand. Tiny fingers brushed the dog's nose, and the dog responded with a cautious lick. It felt as if an unspoken pact had formed between them at that moment. We're both lost and wounded. Let's survive together. For the next hour, Lucy sat huddled against the trunk of a pine, half hidden by tangled branches, with the battered she-wolf at her side. The cold pressed in, but the dog's body provided a measure of warmth. Lucy's small arms wrapped around her new companion's neck, tears subsiding into sniffles. The dog licked her cheek occasionally, as if trying to soothe her. Neither knew how or why Lucy had been left there, only that they shared a desperate need for safety. Time seemed suspended until the sound of an approaching engine shattered the stillness. Headlights from a pickup truck cut across the dark road, splashing bright beams over the guardrail and down into the ditch where Lucy and the dog cowered. The dog's ears perked, but her body tensed as well. People had never been kind to her. Lucy, however, saw a flicker of hope in those headlights. She sprang to her feet, stepping out from behind the brush and frantically waving her arms. The truck screeched to a halt, tires skidding on loose gravel. A man leaned out the window, confusion etched on his face as he saw the bedraggled girl, wide-eyed and desperate. "Hey, you okay there?" he shouted over the thrum of the engine. Lucy opened her mouth to speak, but words caught in her throat. The dog gave a worried glance, as if unsure whether this was friend or foe. Sensing Lucy's fear, the dog moved in front of her protectively, letting out a low growl. The driver, Ethan Roy, was a local volunteer firefighter and an animal lover. He recognized the dog's defensive posture, but also noted the child clinging behind it, obviously in dire need. Carefully, he shut off the engine and got out, raising his palms in a non-threatening gesture. "It's okay," Ethan said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." Lucy, trembling, found her voice at last. "Please, help us." Ethan's gaze shifted between the trembling girl and the wounded dog. He saw the dog's injury, a gash in her shoulder, dried blood crusting the fur. "You both need help," he said, stepping closer. The dog growled again, but the moment Lucy rested a hand on her flank, she fell silent. Within minutes, Ethan coaxed them into the truck's cab, offering Lucy a blanket from behind the seat. The dog, battered and limping, curled up on the floorboard by Lucy's feet, shying away from human touch. Lucy, for her part, shivered beneath the blanket, relief in her eyes. She'd been too scared to trust any adult until now. As Ethan drove them toward the nearest hospital, Lucy stammered out the bits of her story she could manage. She didn't know exactly how she had ended up alone, something about a fight at home, a hurried car ride, and then someone telling her, "Wait here. I'll be back." But no one came back. She was hungry, terrified, and had spent the last day wandering near the roadside, hoping someone would stop. The dog, battered as she was, had a tale etched in her scars too, though it remained unspoken. Ethan glanced down occasionally, noticing the dog's anxious eyes scanning every movement of his hand. She trembled slightly whenever he adjusted the steering wheel, as if expecting a blow. Ethan's heart broke at the sight. He vowed silently to do whatever it took to ensure both Lucy and the dog found safety. They arrived at a small-town hospital with an adjoining after-hours emergency veterinarian next door. A stroke of luck. Lucy clung to the dog, unwilling to step out. Finally, after gentle coaxing, they convinced Lucy to go inside for a medical check while Ethan carried the reluctant dog to the vet clinic. That night, 2 lives on the brink of despair found a second chance, thanks to a moment of unexpected kindness, the warmth of an unspoken bond, and the promise that neither of them would be alone again. On an afternoon a few weeks later, Lucy, who had been placed with a temporary foster family in town, decided to sneak out and see the dog. She walked over in the drizzle, tearful and upset after an argument at her new foster home. When she arrived, she found the backyard gate slightly ajar and let herself in. The dog recognized Lucy instantly, bounding over to greet her with a gentle wag of the tail. Lucy sank to her knees, hugging the dog fiercely, her tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. Ethan, alerted by the barking, hurried outside to find Lucy sobbing into the dog's neck. "They said I can't have any pets. They won't even let me visit you much. I feel like I have no one," she cried. The dog whimpered, as if empathizing. That was when Lucy looked up at Ethan with a desperate plea. "Please, can't I stay here? I'll help take care of her, I promise." Ethan's heart wrenched. Legalities prevented him from simply keeping Lucy, but in that moment he realized how deeply the two, child and dog, had bonded over their shared abandonment. "I'll do everything I can," he said softly, kneeling beside them. "But we have to work with the system to make it happen. I'll talk to your social worker, I promise." Lucy glanced at the dog's bandaged shoulder, noticing fresh blood seeping through. She'd overexerted herself while playing. "She's still hurt," Lucy exclaimed, pressing her hand gently on the bandage. The dog let out a soft whine but didn't pull away. Her compassion was evident. Ethan swiftly ushered them both inside to tend to the bandage. As he worked, he marveled at how the dog trusted Lucy's touch, leaning into the child for comfort. It was as if they were healing together, Lucy from her emotional wounds, the dog from her physical and psychological scars. In that moment, Ethan realized the dog needed a name. "Any suggestions?" he asked Lucy. Her face brightened. "Willow," she whispered, "like the tree that bends but doesn't break." Ethan grinned. The name felt fitting, strong yet gentle. A survivor. Willow it was. Over the next month, Ethan followed through on his promise. He worked with Lucy's caseworker to request a special visitation arrangement. The child visited regularly, helping to bathe, feed, and walk Willow. Under Lucy's tender care, Willow's limp eased, her coat grew glossy, and her eyes sparkled with joy. She was still skittish around strangers, but in Lucy's presence, a quiet confidence emerged. Meanwhile, Lucy's foster situation remained precarious. She was now in a group home, waiting for a permanent placement. Each goodbye at Ethan's house brought tears. Willow, sensing Lucy's sadness, would whine and paw at the door even after she left. Ethan's heart twisted each time. He wanted nothing more than to foster Lucy himself, but the system was complicated. Determined, he started the application process, hoping to provide a stable home for them both. One dreary afternoon with storm clouds gathering, Lucy arrived for her routine visit. Willow bounded up, tail wagging. After an hour of playful fetch and brushing, Lucy grew quiet. She looked at Ethan with a resolve beyond her years. "I don't want to go back to the group home," she said plainly. "I'm scared there." Ethan knelt, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'm working on the paperwork, Lucy. We just have to be patient." She nodded, though tears glistened in her eyes. Then the roar of a car engine startled them both. A sleek black sedan screeched to a halt at the curb. A man stepped out, a figure Ethan had never seen before. He had a hardened expression and a rough posture. Lucy's face went pale. She backed away. "That's Uncle Ray," she stammered, dread threading her voice. Uncle Ray, it turned out, was an estranged relative. He barked Lucy's name, his face twisting with anger. "You're coming with me," he demanded, stepping into Ethan's yard uninvited. "I'm your real family." His eyes flicked warily to Willow, who had positioned herself protectively in front of Lucy. Unsettled by the man's aggressive tone, Ethan tried to reason with him. "Sir, if you're family, you need to speak with her social worker. Lucy is under child protection." Ray ignored him, lunging to grab Lucy's arm. She let out a frightened yelp, tears streaming. Willow responded with a fierce growl, hackles raised. In that instant, the dog who had once cowered before any human blow defended the child she loved. She bared her teeth, stepping between Lucy and Ray, a menacing snarl rumbling from her chest. Ray, startled, hesitated. "Keep that beast away from me," he roared. He tried to shove Willow aside, but she dodged, her entire body coiled with protective fury. "No, Willow," Lucy cried, fearful that the dog might get hurt. Ethan attempted to de-escalate the situation. "Let go of Lucy," he warned, his voice firm. But Ray was too angry, too desperate to listen. He reached out again, yanking Lucy's wrist. Willow sprang into action, emitting a warning bark and snapping at Ray's pant leg. She clamped down just enough to force him to release Lucy's arm. The man stumbled back, losing his balance. Shaken, Ray glared at Willow, then at Ethan, seething. "This isn't over," he spat. "That child is mine by blood. I'll be back with the law." He slammed the car door and screeched away, leaving Lucy trembling in Ethan's yard. Willow, tail lowered, whined softly, nuzzling Lucy's leg. Lucy sank to her knees, hugging Willow's neck, fresh tears streaming down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of gratitude and relief. Willow had risked her own safety to protect her from harm. Ethan could only watch, his heart pounding with a strange mix of fear and pride. In that singular act of devotion, Willow had repaid the kindness that Lucy and Ethan had shown her. Shaken but resolute, Ethan called the authorities at once, explaining the incident in detail. He also contacted Lucy's social worker, who arrived with the police to document everything. The confrontation with Ray revealed deeper issues. He had a criminal record, making him an unfit guardian. The social worker, seeing the bond Lucy shared with Ethan and Willow, accelerated the process for a more stable guardianship arrangement. Weeks blurred into a flurry of legal steps, background checks, and home inspections. Through it all, Lucy continued to visit Willow daily, each time with a more hopeful expression. The dog's bandages came off, revealing a fully healed shoulder. Her once fearful eyes now shone with unwavering loyalty. She had found a reason to trust humans again because Lucy and Ethan had shown her love and security. Finally, on a crisp autumn morning, Lucy arrived at Ethan's house accompanied by a social worker. This time she carried a small duffel bag of clothes and personal items. She didn't have much, but the social worker gave a nod and a warm smile. "Congratulations," she said. "We've approved a foster placement here until the adoption can be finalized. Lucy, you can stay with Mr. Roy and Willow if you're willing." Lucy's eyes lit up with pure joy. She flung her arms around Ethan's waist, tears threatening to spill over. Willow barked excitedly, bounding around them, and so a new family was formed, one built on trust, love, and second chances.